Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, a warm welcome to the India Today Conclave 2021. Majority, minority, the battle for belonging. How to rethink the Muslim question in India. A contentious and often polarizing issue which requires a dialogue. To take that dialogue further, we're joined today by a very special guest, the Governor of Kerala, politician, intellectual, Islamic scholar, Arif Mohammad Khan. Mr. Khan, let me start, Mr. Governor, by asking you very simply, what does it mean for you to be an Indian Muslim? How do you see your identity as an Indian Muslim?
So you have changed the format.
Not at all. It's Q&A.
No, I'm very happy with
Yeah,
this
okay,
format.
good.
Yes. Before I reply to your question, because the audience here, I have in the past spoken so many times on this subject that most people must be familiar with my views. Before responding to your question, I want to express my dismay, my sadness, that in this year, 75th year of our independence, we are celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. And this Azadi did not come free. This Azadi was accompanied by the partition of the country, bloody partition of the country. There was so much bad blood, so much violence. And after 75 years, I think that partition happened because of this imaginary Muslim question, because of this question of majority and minority. And now after 75 years, instead of discussing Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, we still find this question. I mean, India was partitioned. And as I said earlier, it was a bloody partition. Have we learned any lesson from that? Yes, our constitution makers, they were very clear in their mind that there are two things which have weakened India from within, which led to India's enslavement and finally to India's partition. And those were, they took the decision in the Constituent Assembly, abolition of untouchability and abolition of separate electorate. Because it was separate electorate which created, which gave rise to this identity politics where everything was determined and decided by your identity, which community you belong to. Everything else was not important. Political representation was on that basis. Our constitution makers were fully conscious that it was this system which ultimately culminated in the partition of the country. Therefore, they said goodbye to both these things. Untouchability, which was at the root of the caste system, which kept the society divided, and separate electorate, which created identity on the basis of religious faith of a person. Now, it was our duty. And I am not just expressing sadness because you have chosen this subject to discuss. The political class failed to build a new discourse. And media also has not done very well on this score. There was need to build new discourse in India. There is a question. During the British period, India, they never considered India a nation. They considered India a conglomeration of communities. But this constitution considers citizen as the constituent unit of India. Where is the question of communities now? What is the Muslim come to my village and ask an ordinary Muslim, what is the Muslim question? He will be perplexed because his problems are the same problems as the problems of a person, of a peasant who is a Hindu, who is of a different caste, different denomination. But here, while sitting in Delhi, for us, someone saying from Hyderabad that there is a Muslim question, then we take that more serious.
No, the reason I'm saying this, I would love to agree with you on a conceptual basis, but look at the reality. We are sitting in a place where not too far away, a few kilometers away, there were riots in February last year where identity was a question. People were targeted based on which religious group they belonged to. We are sitting in a country where every time before elections, the political class goes and appeals to people based on their identities. That is the reality of this country. The Chief Minister of India's most populous state uses the dog whistle of Abba Jan. That's the reality. What you say at a conceptual level, who's going to disagree, sir? But this is the reality, the reason. Let's not run away from the reality of what is the situation on the ground. People are either demonized as if they belong to a particular community, or they cry victimhood. But either way, this is a real life question. You've got to ask this question of your own political class, sir, in a way. Why did they take us to where we are 75 years later? Would you agree with me?
Sir, I think you did not pay attention to what I stated earlier. I said political class has failed miserably. But it was the duty of the media, it is the duty of the media to question us if we are not acting, we are not promoting the spirit of the Constitution, if we are not promoting the morality of the Constitution. Unfortunately, instead of asking me, you are promoting the same mindset.
Sir, I don't
The
practice...
media, yes.
Sir, just a minute. I don't practice vote bank politics. Your political class does. Don't blame the media. Do not shoot the messenger.
Sir, I have not. I have already said that politicians have failed and media has also not been successful in the sense that if, power, unfortunately, when you seek power, that is why the media is considered as the most important pillar of democracy. So that in my pursuit of power, if I do something which goes against the provisions of the Constitution, against the morality of the Constitution, against the spirit of the Constitution, then you ask questions to me. Instead of asking questions to me, you are promoting the same mindset. You are promoting the same discourse. You are promoting the same, the professor of Jawaharlal Nehru University, he has written, he is no more, Professor Bipin Chandra, he was a leftist, but I greatly admire what he has written in his book. He said, Confucius, before referring to him, I will come to Confucius. Confucius was asked by his pupil, by his disciples, what is the essence of action? And Confucius said, choice of right words. His students were flabbergasted. What choice of right words has got to do with the essence of action? And Confucius replied back, he said, if you do not use the right words, it means you have no sense of the nature of the thing. If you do not have the sense of nature of thing, then you cannot analyze it properly. You cannot come up with a proper prescription for the solution of the problem. Likewise, the professor of JNU, he said, we must be careful in using the terms and terminology. Because if we use a terminology which heightens the sense of community consciousness, ultimately it will strengthen the forces of communalism. And we have paid so much price, India. We have paid so much price for having that kind of mindset. We have to decide whether we want to fight that mindset or we want to promote that mindset.
So I couldn't agree again with you more about use of language. You said sabka saath, sabka vikas. No one will disagree with that. But at the same time, there is also the language which is used of love jihad. In your own state now, where you are the governor, a bishop of a church uses the words of narcotics jihad, and he is cheered. Leaders of a political party that you belong to before you went to Kerala use the word love jihad freely at the slightest moment. Is this the kind of language that is going to give the Muslim a sense of confidence that of sabka saath, sabka vikas? You can't go both ways, sir. You talk at one level in a nice, comfortable gathering about sabka saath, sabka vikas. You go before an electoral gathering when you want your votes for vote bank politics. You talk the language of love jihad. Both can't go together, sir.
I do not know if a priest is saying something, not that everybody is cheering him up. Even there are many other priests who have criticized him. Where is the question? My point is not that everybody should start speaking the same language. That is not my point.
Do you approve of the use, for example, sir, of the use love jihad?
Sir, if you kindly, you will be very
Sir.
kind to me if you do not cut me
Sure,
when
sure.
I'm making my point.
Sure, sir.
I will listen to your full question, then please be nice enough to listen to my response. My point is that in a democracy, particularly in India, the democracy did not start after the independence of the country. We have always believed in free spirit. This country, we have certain concepts of freedom. Everybody is free to whatever they want to see. The question is that the responsible people who have a duty to perform, which voices they are going to promote and which voices they must ignore. Simply because somebody is making some statement, therefore we should take him. Don't make them famous by referring to them again and again. I read it somewhere and I liked it so much that I have learned the secret to happiness. Keep away from the idiots. Why I have to pay attention to every statement which somebody makes? Basically, what is my agenda? Is my agenda proactive agenda or my agenda is reactive agenda? My agenda is proactive agenda, and those who come in the way, I will try to ignore them unless they become a serious threat. And to me, this discourse, the wordings, majority, minority, what is meant by in a democracy, in a rule of law society, one with law is majority. Who is going to decide? I should feel, I have never accepted, not now. 1980, I gave interview, that was my first year in parliament. I gave interview to Sunday, and that was also published in Ravivar. And I said, I refuse to accept this appellation, minority. Minority means you are telling me that I am less than equal. I am not. I am a proud Indian citizen who enjoys equal rights. Minority, what is minority? Minority, even the Constitution, Supreme Court of India has not been able to define so far who is a minority in India. This is only a concession to that mindset which had become used to this terminology during the British period. And what the Constitution says when it talks of minority, protection of minority rights, it says, it provides that the minorities, first, it is not a religious minority. The words used in the Constitution are lingual minority, some community having their own distinct script, distinct language, distinct religion. They will have the right to establish educational institutions. Not that government they will have the special right where government will set up institutions for them. No, sir, that is not the position. I have requested so many people who have interviewed me earlier. I said, show me one provision in the Constitution which talks of minority rights. Minority rights are needed in countries which are theocracies because there is a ceiling on the growth. The citizens are not treated equally. On my growth, there is no ceiling. Yes, if I want to, I'm not saying because I was born in a Muslim family. I'm saying any citizen of this country. he wants to wear any badge of identity other than the Indian identity, he will have a problem. She will have a problem. I'm not just talking about the Muslims. Anybody who tries to wear a different badge will have a problem. And if you have Indian identity, then there may be problems. But constitutionally, legally speaking, it all depends on my purusharth, how I win the confidence of the people. Sky is the limit for me.
If you say there are no concepts of minority rights as per the Constitution, you tell me, and to your great credit, you stood up during the Shah Bano case, which was seen in the 1980s as a major turning point, because people then sensed that the state was doing what was described as, at one level, appeasement. Have we moved from appeasement in the 1980s to today what is described as majoritarianism? That in a sense, while you say there are no minority rights, there was minority appeasement when a Muslim woman wanted her rights under the law, which she should have been guaranteed of maintenance, wasn't given. And today, where you have a situation where the main party of this country does not have a single Muslim representative in the Lok Sabha out of the 300 odd. So have we moved, sir, from minority appeasement in the 1980s when the Congress was in power to majoritarianism today?
I do not know if that was minority appeasement.
What was it?
Because half the Muslim population, you were depriving of a right.
Absolutely.
Was it an appeasement? It was appeasement of certain sections, mostly those who have political ambitions. And I have tried to clear this misunderstanding again and again. And today I have no hesitation to repeat it. I was not fighting for women's rights. First of all, my viewpoint is that there are no women's rights. These are all human rights. And if you deprive women of their rights, then the men are hurting themselves, the society is hurting itself. You weaken the society when you weaken half of your population. Basically, the thing which motivated me most was the language which was being used by All India Muslim Personal Law Board. What they were saying, ये हमारे मिल्ली तशख़्ख़ुस का मामला है, not even of religion. We have a separate community identity. Now till 1947, they were saying that we are a separate nation. Now they do not have the guts to repeat the same thing because country has already been partitioned. Therefore, they were using a euphemism to promote separatism, and they were saying, Milli Tashakhus ka mamla. We are not part of the Indian mainstream. We are different from that mainstream. I took exception to that stand. If you feel anybody, India, anybody feels concerned, why only a community? Even if an individual feels concerned about his religious faith, this society has always been like that, that issue must be addressed. But if in the name of religion, you are promoting separatism, you are promoting division in the society, then that was my advice. In fact, in Hindi, I had formulated 2 sentences, and I had suggested to the then leader of the government that stand up in parliament and say, if anybody has any concern about his religious faith, Bharat Bhumi, Dharm Bhumi hai, we will address that. But we shall not allow anybody to use religion to create divisions in the society.
In that sense, if the clergy in particular, the Islamic clergy has exploited in a way religious sentiments to build this separatist identity at one level, is the problem today that you have those who speak the language of a Hindu Rashtra, which give the minorities a sense, or the Muslims a sense, that they are not getting equal citizenship in terms of the Indian state discriminating against them, again, because of the language being used, the words being
Sir,
used.
how much more time we have?
We have 9 minutes and 30
You have
seconds.
9 minutes. I will try to sum it up as soon as possible. When you say Hindu Rashtra, Hindu is a word which has not been used in any of our scripture. This was a word which was, everybody admits it. Even Swami Vivekananda has written it. That the problem with us, please pay attention to what I'm saying. We were ruled for long period of time by people. When I say foreigner, I do not mean in a negative sense. When I say foreigner, I'm using it in a sense that they were not familiar with Indian ethos and Indian philosophy and Indian viewpoint. Indian civilization was never defined by religion. All other civilizations in the world were defined either by religion, mostly by religion, but also before that by race, by language. Indian civilization, 4,000, 5,000, we do not know exactly when this journey began, but it was never defined by religious faith. Indian scriptures say, Bharteshu Striya Purusho Nana Varna Pirkirtite Nana Dev Archane Yukta Nana Karmani Kurvate. The Indian women and men, they belong to different races. They worship different gods. They practice different rituals and customs. So when we use the problem with I have said, I'm going to use the word foreigner. They were not familiar with Indian ethos. Their own attitude was the civilization, the background that was defined by religion. Therefore, they had to use a word which symbolized, which was used more in the sense of religious faith. Therefore, they used the term Hindu. But the Indian thought leaders were never satisfied with that appellation. That is why in the Constituent Assembly, the Hindu, Sikh, Jain, Buddhist, they were included in the definition of Hinduism, making it amply clear that Hindu term Hindu does not mean uniformity of belief or uniformity of practices in the matters of religion. Therefore, sir, Hindu Raj, there is nothing. Yes, there are, in India, there has never been a theocracy. So when you say Hindu Rashtra, you are actually equating Hindu Rashtra with kind of Muslim theocracy or Christian theocracies which have existed in the past, and somewhere they are still existing. Hamare yahan to in India, I was surprised. I myself was not aware. About 4 or 5 months back, I read a shlok somewhere, and I was surprised to see that they have created the source which has been mentioned there. They claim that this is a Vedic sutra. It says, Pashand, Negam, Shreni, Puga, Virat, Guna, Dishu, Sarrat, Chet, Samyam, Raja, Durge, Janpade, Tatha. Now, this is a Vedic sutra which is saying that Pashand, those who deny Veda, Negam, those who believe in Veda, or for that matter, anybody, it is the duty of the political system of the Raja to provide equal protection to each one of them. Give me one example. Give me one example. Just a minute. In Pakistan, yes, there is need to have minority rights. Why? Because there is ceiling on those who are not Muslims. They cannot aspire for certain positions. They are discriminated against. But in India, it is not only our constitution who gives us equal rights, but more than that, our cultural heritage. The Indian civilization has no concept of discriminating on the basis of the religion. Therefore, to link the two, I find preposterous.
Therefore, since we now have 4.5 minutes, distinguish for me between the cultural, civilizational, constitutional concept that you've given me, which in a sense respects this whole notion of citizenship, not minority, majority, but citizenship, and the reality which exists on the ground, where, as I said, people are pitted against each other based on their religious identity. I would, want you to give me 3 practical ways in which, therefore, this question can be settled. Because when I see the numbers, when I see the numbers of Muslims declining in parliament, when I see the Sachar report saying there are now far fewer IPS and IAS officers who are Muslims than ever before, when Muslim representation in places where they could be empowered is consistently reducing. Give me 3 practical examples. The man on the street doesn't know about civilizational, cultural concepts. He wants to know how is his or her life going to change. Give me 3 practical examples, whether it's uniform civil code or whatever it is.
Okay.
3.5 minutes.
Okay.
I know it's too little.
Sir, I know that if you say number of those who are Muslims, their number is declining in parliament, I can understand that. But when you use the term Muslim representation, it means you are promoting the same mindset that only a Muslim can represent the Muslims. Sir, when I was representing, I represented Kanpur parliamentary constituency, which had, when I was elected, it had only 11.2% Muslim population. Only 11.2%. And you will be surprised to know that my nearest rival was a Muslim too.
Which year was this, sir?
Sir, 1980.
So what has changed between 1980 to 2021?
Shabano.
Where today it will be
I'm
impossible for a Muslim to win a constituency.
Let me complete.
Sir,
not
please.
question upon question.
Sir.
First, let me respond to your question and then you put another question.
Sir, what has changed?
Change? In 1986, I'm so thankful to my younger son Kabir, who is sitting here. He has compiled all the interviews which I had given in 1986. Even I had forgotten about it. And in 1986 and 87, I have said at least 3 times in my press conferences. I said that now CAT is out. I said I pray to God that all my apprehensions which today I have after Shahbano, I pray to God that they are proved wrong. But none of them was proved wrong.
You see that as a turning point.
I saw it then. Those who refused to take notice of what evil was happening in 1986, they are surprised today. I am not surprised, sir, because this is what some people were asking for.
So the 3 reasons, sir. One, you're
Sir,
saying.
I'm coming.
We have 1.5 minutes. The 3 reasons.
Not
3 ways, 3 solutions.
There can be solution. There can be solution even if you have one proper, very, very healthy, strong solution that can be helpful and everything. Why necessarily 3? My suggestion is the need is one thing is that I would request you to stop promoting those who speak divisive language, who speak in separatist terminology.
I couldn't agree with you more.
And the main one is we need to build a strong this feeling. I am an Indian. My identity is Indian. As far as religion is concerned, I have already told you in India, even 2 persons belonging to the same family, they worship different gods. Where is the question of anyone feeling threatened? Everybody is free to do it in his own way. But unless we strengthen the sense of Indian identity and keep promoting separate identities, these problems are not going to be
I
solved.
couldn't agree with you more. Reject the voices of division.
Yes.
and those who speak that language need to be also given less space. Just one last thing, since Shah Banu you said was a turning point, do you believe therefore, what is it now, 35 years later, we need to have a real serious dialogue on a uniform civil code that eventually results in personal laws at least being unified in a country like India?
This is the first question on which I totally agree with you.
It's taken us 30 minutes to reach some kind of an agreement, but that's the problem. The political class, sir, needs to confront the reality. And I hope that while you blame the media, and I completely...
I am not blaming the media. I first said the political class failed to build that new discourse which should have been based on constitutional provisions, constitutional values, constitutional spirit. Media I am blaming only to the extent that instead of asking us questions, why we are deviating, why we are failing, you also started using the same thing, possibly to increase what you call TRP.
Sir, ऐसा है Arif साहब, and this is my final word as Preeti is here. आप लोग अपने वोट बैंक इंक्रीज करना चाहते थे, हम अपनी टीआरपी इंक्रीज करना चाहते थे. To my mind, I agree with you. Toxicity should be removed from the TV screens and toxicity should be removed from your politics. You remove the toxicity from your politics, I give you a guarantee it will come off the TV screens. You start giving tickets and you start ensuring that those who speak the language of division are rejected, we will do so. नेता शुरू करें, हम आपके पीछे चलेंगे, लेकिन आप हमें गोली मत मारिए. Anyway, that is Arif Mohammad Khan, as always contentious and a voice who needs to be heard, because more than ever before, the Muslim question perhaps needs to be addressed by those who are bridge builders. This is an age of bridge builders. The more bridge builders we can find, the better we can become as citizens, not just as Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs and Christians. Arif Mohammad Khan, Governor of Kerala, for joining us and sharing your thoughts. Thank you so much.